Welcome to the Retrieving Catholicity podcast, where we think about life and ministry in light of the whole truth with the whole church for the whole world. Welcome into another episode of the pod. Today we are joined by a very special guest, ?
Yeah, special indeed.
Yeah, very special guest.
I think so.
Kenny, good to see you, man.
Pleasure is mine. Glad to be here.
How are you?
Pretty cold.
Really?
The viewers don't know it, but it's a cold room in here.
Well, we're down here in the podcast studio, and Kenny likes to complain. Like, it's just part of his thing. He likes to be, if he's uncomfortable, you're going to hear it. If he's hungry, you're going to hear it. If he's thirsty, you're going to hear it. But when you have the talent that he has, that's how you got to be, right?
That's right.
No, in all seriousness, Kenny's one of my best friends, and him and his family are here with us in West Virginia for a week or so. And yeah, I wanted to just get him on the pod, just talk a little bit about what God's doing in his life. If there's any viewers or listeners who want to learn more about it, Kenny's a great friend of Resurrection Church, so maybe you've seen them at our church on a Sunday. But Kenny's doing good work, and I want more people to be a part of it and know about it. And so, Kenny, tell us a little bit about your story. How'd you come to faith? What did that look like for you? Let our dozens of audience members know who you are.
All right. Yeah. Well, just want to say again, thanks for allowing me to be here. Yeah, I've known Mason for a while, over 10 years now at this point. I grew up here, went to a rival high school, Winfield Generals,
Winfield is my Nineveh. If God calls me to plant a church there, no, I went screaming and weeping.
Oh, man. But yeah, I mean, just grew up here. My family are originally from Vietnam. They immigrated here about 40 years ago. And yeah, as they immigrated here, they brought, their culture, their religion. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I was just growing up in West Virginia as a young Buddhist boy. Yeah. Didn't know the gospel. Was surrounded by folks that seemed to know the gospel, but their lives did not really portray that. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, long story short, really, it wasn't until college where God had just blessed me tremendously with just faithful brothers that time and time again continue to pour into me, to share the love of Christ. And a course of 2 years, really, that softened my heart to the gospel. During the end of sophomore year in college, the Lord had just been clearly working something in my heart. And through the Lord's grace, Resurrection was planted shortly after. I showed up, and you took me under your wing. Yeah. You said, all right, we can be friends. And then shortly after that came the faith, got baptized, and haven't looked back.
Yeah. Praise God, man.
Yeah.
When we took a trip to our partners in Bristol. And so, hello, Evan, if you watch this podcast, I hope you like it better than you like some of the other ones. I was talking to a university student and sharing with him. And he reminded me a little bit of you in that, like, when you reach that point where you're about to be converted, you still ask questions, but when you get an answer, you just say, okay, that makes sense, and keep going. Like, there's like faith-seeking understanding and then like skepticism. And you can tell when you're talking to someone and they're asking questions and they're just kind of like obfuscating. They're just kind of, but then it's like, well, what about this? And you answer it and they're like, okay, that makes sense. What about this? Okay, that's good. And you were kind of in that season of life when God brought you to Resurrection. So it was so exciting because you were ready to believe and then be baptized. And there, so you believe, you're baptized at our little church plant. At what point is cross-cultural work? So we're going to talk about like missions. I'm going to use a lot of language like cross-cultural workers in the podcast. And so at what point did cross-cultural Christian work come onto your radar, would you say?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think about it a lot, and as I share with folks kind of the ministries and things that the Lord has been doing in my life and my family's life and our experience overseas. Yeah, that question comes around a lot. Like, how did it work? How did it
Where did
happen
it start?
for me? Really simply, there were a few things that kind of happened and that transpired while I was coming to faith. Um, One, I was in university and college and was pursuing pre-med. And, for me, I was just chasing the American dream.
Yeah.
I was going to be a doctor, specialize in something, make six figures, retire and play golf. And somewhere in Florida, like that was the dream.
Yeah.
Terrible at golf. I don't know why that was ever on my radar, but that was the dream.
Around, dodge alligators, and
exactly. So that was really what I knew and what I thought was like the defining definition of success.
Yeah, that's success. Yeah.
And then when I came to just meet the Lord face to face, it became clear that like that wasn't what life is about.
Yeah.
And I remember like as I was wrestling with these things, trying to navigate just what the Lord would have for me, being more open to his plans.
Yeah.
I had really had to break down this idol that I had made in my life.
Yeah.
And so I remember conversations with you, with just, we were talking through like, all right, this is kind of what I want to do. I want to continue maybe to hold on to becoming a doctor.
Yeah.
But like, I also want to kind of fit that in with Jesus.
Yeah.
And then it became clear that instead of making the Jesus the center of my life, I was still making the prestige, the money, the platform was the center.
Yeah.
Once the Spirit convicted me of that, it became very clear that I was going to go about a different direction. So then, simply then, it was, okay, Jesus, like, my life is yours. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And I became just so passionate about what those brothers did for me while I was in college. Just the continued faithfulness, continued just meeting one-on-one, going out of their way. I mean, they were driving for an hour, from a neighboring college once a week, again and again. I would be a terrible friend to them. They would call me and I would say, oh, sorry, I'm busy. But they were still so faithful. And so that just really, for me, impacted the way I saw what sharing the gospel is like.
Yeah.
And so then that became what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then, we had a conversation and I was like, hey, like, this is something I'm thinking about, but also like, I'm thinking about maybe doing it in an overseas context.
Yeah.
Like, do people do that in Christianity?
Yeah.
I remember asking
No, you'll
that.
be the very first.
I was just so naive. But so at the same time, just so
there's a beauty
thankful of
to that naivete.
Yeah,
of like
definitely.
I want to do. Like I remember when I was feeling called to plant and meeting with Seth Polk, the Cross Lanes Baptist Church's pastor, and he's like, "What do you want? Like, you're gonna have to go to seminary."
Yeah,
I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Where do you want to go?" I didn't know any seminaries.
Yeah,
I said, I don't know, a good one.
Yeah, that's
it's
it.
the same.
Yeah.
It's like you just start feeling this like call, and then God sort of says like, "Oh, look, here's all these things you had no idea about."
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly how it kind of happened. And so, that was really the start. And I didn't know anything about the Bible. You and you graciously kind of told me like, hey, like, why don't you stick around for a year and like we'll figure it out. And then and then overseas ministry came kind of at the perfect time.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and just fast forward to the present. Then God's done a lot of things through your seminary education, through places you've been, work that you've done, people you've met, people who've poured into you, people you've poured into. So we're skipping over a lot of the Spirit's work, but now you and your family are settling where to do what?
Right. Yeah, so over the course of many years, like you said, seminary, time overseas in different areas, doing different kinds of work and different kinds of jobs, we have just felt the Lord guiding us, directing us into church planting work internationally. And internationally defined as multi-ethnic, multicultural ministry.
Yeah.
And so for us, that would look like going back to the UAE, where we would be joining in with faithful brothers and sisters
Yep.
that have been ministering and are continuing to do so, to really share just the good news to people from all over the place.
Yeah. And so we're obviously on a podcast, and there are people who will see this. And so the UAE is in the Middle East, but it's safe to say I'm living in the UAE doing ministry. Why?
Yeah, so the UAE is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing country. And so open to the Christian life. And because of that, it presents an amazing opportunity for churches to minister to a multitude of people.
Yeah.
The church that we are going to try and be a part of again, to then hopefully plant a church, is beautiful in its display of the Revelation 7:9 vision of just people from all over the place. 25 plus different countries represented.
Wow.
And the UAE is just a beautiful melting pot, even more so, I think, because of the concentration of the people there. And it's also geographic location. And so it presents an amazing opportunity for gospel work in a way that is really unmatched by anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, so the nations descend on a place like the United States, but it's such a large geographic territory.
Right.
When the nations descend on a place like the UAE, it's a lot more concentrated, and people are there, like they're just living there, and
I mean, there is my day to day, 9 out of 10 people that you're going to meet or run into just in parks, malls, and wherever, and in these common spaces are going to be people from all over the place, all over the place. And it's amazing in a sense that whereas a lot of folks want to try to come to the States, here, and it's relatively difficult. What ends up happening is the UAE becomes just the best.
Just go there.
The best thing.
An international hub.
And so these places where they're countries that are very war torn, very conservative, have no access to the gospel, they get to come to a place where they get to see a Christian. They get to see a church. They get to see
a church like this is a church, like pretty plainly marked.
Very clearly. Like this is a church. This is a gathering of believers worshiping together from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, that's great, man. So you and your family are going to continue being there in the UAE. What kind of work are you going to be sort of setting your head and heart and hand to over the next year or two? What's that in a local church? What's that sort of work going to look like?
Yeah, so simply for us, our hope is to go back soon towards the end of the summer. And we will plug ourselves back into this local church that's on the ground there. For us, if we want to be about planting churches, we need to know what a church looks like. And for us to plant multi-ethnic, multicultural churches, then we need to be knees deep in what that ministry looks like. And so, for that season, we're looking at a year or two. And then hopefully from then, plant a church.
Yeah, great. I do think it's so wise to embed yourself in an international church context that looks something like what you would want to see. Because, Resurrection, there are plenty of healthy churches that we've been a part of over the years that you can learn lessons from. But there were certain things where it's like, as my convictions developed and as my ministry philosophy developed, I knew what I wanted to do, but I had never seen it done. You know what I mean?
Right.
I had never been a part of a church that was practicing this in this way. I had never been a part of a church that had the sort of liturgical elements that we have, and that tried to blend those with normal people's expectations, that tried to make those cohere with Baptist doctrine, that tried to implement sort of a more biblically aspirational view of elders and deacons and comport that with a view of staff that also makes sense and works. And like, I've been a part of churches that did like each of these things, but like what I'm trying to do is hard to do. And so not that your eventual church will look exactly like the church that you're at right now, but I do think there's a lot of value in taking time to say, we want to kind of see it,
Right.
Be a part of it. And that's going to be really helpful as you do look at planting and, multi-ethnic church in a place like the UAE.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think for me, one of the beauties of coming to faith at Resurrection, which I always just, I count my blessings often, is that I saw what a healthy church should look like very early on. And that kind of became the foundation in which I started thinking about church for really up to this day. It's messy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Resurrection had its high seasons, its low seasons.
Yeah.
But the gospel was true in every aspect of it. And so that just carried on and carried on. And that is also something I believe that it doesn't change when you go overseas. There are biblical principles from the church here in the States that directly apply overseas as well. Yeah,
and that's encouraging for me to hear because our church now is nothing like it was in 2015. And I think that's a good thing, right? And you would agree. But we can so easily idealize the past or demonize the past. You know what I mean? We can idolize it or we can think it was the worst thing ever. And the reality is there were so many ways where we needed to get healthier and improve and things we needed to fix and whatever. But in our earnest efforts, the Spirit was still moving and the Spirit was still working. And so some of those like essential things you can grasp, even if I look back, I'm like, we weren't doing this, we weren't doing that. I didn't understand this, I didn't understand that, right? So that leads to a good discussion, I think, on the relationship of church and cross-cultural Christian work. So, people often we often like to put pastor over here and missionary over here, and I think those are still distinct things. You could speak into that maybe. But in what ways is the church, the local church, the gathered local church, what ways might we think of it as more central to our cross-cultural efforts than we might?
Yeah, I think, as you have watched your videos from time to time, not all of them.
Yeah, no, I know not all of them.
But, one of the things that you kind of harp on is this broader Catholicity of the church. So
I do talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
That's the podcast.
I mean, that's the whole thing,
That's
right?
what we're doing, bro.
That's the whole thing.
We're achieving it together.
And so there is but like in that, there is like this more universal sense that we tend to lose when we start thinking about our tribe or our denomination. And what we should, I think, with this whole series and your efforts, try to go back to a more let's link arms and go about doing ministry together across denominational lines, across tribal lines, whatever that would look like. Although holding the gospel. The
being
true
convictional,
gospel.
being thoughtful, but working with other Christians, not pretending like they don't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
When we are spiritually bound to them, if we like it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of like focus on that a little bit because for when we start thinking about cross-cultural ministry, that line is often just completely separated. There's almost a false dichotomy that's kind of put between, you are a missionary, you are doing work cross-culturally, you are a pastor, you're here in the States, you're pastoring a church. Those
like
two things
missions.
are two separate things. And really what we end up having is Christ giving two different missions to two different
Is Christ
groups of
divided
people.
in 1 Corinthians, what Paul would ask.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And so really then to kind of like try and bring it back forward, there needs to be more wrestling.
More of an integrated sense of the church's mission in the world.
Exactly. And so as I'm picturing the work overseas and how that's going to unfold, what my hope is with Resurrection and other churches back home is that we would have a strong partnership, a partnership based on the gospel, a partnership based on the mission, which is to see all peoples come to know Christ,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's just going to take some work.
Yeah.
It's not something that I feel like has been done well.
Yeah.
But hopefully, by God's grace,
Yeah.
we can go back to that.
I do think there are more and more people talking about like not Western church, but healthy church. I think that can get entangled.
Yes,
I think some of the guys we might like, it's tempting to equate those things. But a healthy gathering, there are cross-cultural markers of a healthy church gathering.
Yeah.
Some would say there are even 9 marks.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think there are things that like healthy churches have that cross cultures that we can say look Western, but they're not like Western. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think centering the local church's activity, I think too, like in terms of like discipleship, you know what I mean? Like integrating that with conversion with discipleship, like all in the context of sent out and a part of a local church, not just sent out, but like really a part of robustly. So like, you're partnering with churches back here in the States, partnering with a church in the UAE. And then when you're planting, like you're planting a church. So as you're reaching people, you're reaching them in the context of this covenant community and you're trying to bring them into that community because Christ is building his church throughout the nations. And I think sometimes that utter church centeredness can get lost.
Yeah. It reminds me of, as we're looking through, when we're thinking about cross-cultural work specifically, there's a lot of talk about Paul, the Apostle Paul, and really what he does.
Yeah.
And I think we often forget that Paul cares about the church just as much as he cares about the lost.
Yeah.
And we so clearly see it when he's commending his fellow workers. He's commending his the churches that support him and that he's come alongside. And then also the churches that he's visited repeatedly.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's just... when we start thinking about church partnership, there is a real meaningful and tangible vacuum space there that's just not there at the moment. And I think we're, like you said, we're starting to feel that.
Yeah.
We're starting to kind of look
at least
through,
acknowledge that and see.
Yeah, at least acknowledge like, okay,
this.
there's something missing there. And I think the church as a whole is going to be strengthened from something like that.
I think so too. Yeah, and when I think about like even the impetus for cross-cultural work is in my opinion tied to the Catholicity of the church. Because when we confess the Nicene Creed, these biblical markers of ecclesiology, when we confess faith in one holy Catholic and apostolic church, latent in that term Catholic is the idea that it's going to cross time and space. The church will cross time and space. The church will be composed of people from all time. Therefore, we as Christians are agents of seeing that happen. So if you want to look for like missional markers in the creed, I think you find them under the subset of ecclesiology. I mean, obviously God is a sending God, and it goes back to our theology proper ultimately, but ecclesiology is a bit of a derivative doctrine, if you will. But I think that, I think the Catholicity of the church compels us to say, as the church expands, we are part of that expansion. The Holy Spirit is working through us to take this gospel all over the world and build the church that Christ promises to build. So, any other thoughts? So maybe like if somebody's watching this and they might feel the sense to leave home for the sake of the gospel, whatever that looks like, what would you tell them to do? Maybe commit to a local church. What would you say?
I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I think if someone is thinking, man, like I would love to go to places where Christ is not known and share the love of God with them. Yeah. The first thing I would want to tell them is serve at your local church. Commit to your local church. Yeah.
In whatever ways they need.
In whatever ways, of course. In whatever ways that they're able to.
Because I feel like a lot of people go to cross-cultural context and their idealism hasn't yet been broken. And if that happens away from home, away from people who think like you, look like you, talk like you, and it happens there, it's a breakdown waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But if your idealism is broken pretty quickly, and not in a bad way, in a redemptive way, then you're like, okay, I can do this. I can work in nursery. I can be a greeter. I can do this thing, even if no one sees it.
And really, ministry overseas is just a lot of ways that
ministry overseas,
just serving, in ways that maybe you don't want to.
Yeah.
But this is what is needed.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that would be probably one of the first things I would advise people.
Yeah. Cool. Last couple of questions, I guess, about partnership. So some of you watching this might be pastors of churches, or you might be members of local churches, and maybe you're interested in this sort of vision of helping plant churches in international places where we can reach people and people groups who are unreached, or maybe functionally unreached, or just individual people who have never heard the gospel who are ending up there. And the UAE is a pretty accessible, but not at the moment.
Right.
At the moment, not so much, but this conflict will pass. And when this conflict does pass, it'll be a place that Christians can get to pretty easily. Do you want more partners?
Yeah, of course.
What kind of partners are you looking for?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, very plainly, we need prayer partners.
Yeah.
I think the Lord has clearly been working and doing something in a place, in a region where many of us can't believe that there's something going on.
Yeah.
And so for us, very tangibly, prayer partners. I think that's the first thing. Second thing is just tangible monthly supporters as well. For us, the ministry that we're hoping to do is only from the generosity of the church.
Yeah.
I think we often forget that sometimes, but it is only by what members, what fellow brothers and sisters do in the church that really help propel, like you said, the work overseas.
Yeah, let me jump in there real quick. I preached 3 John at Resurrection this past Sunday. Underrated book.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I mean, underrated book.
I can't remember the last time I've heard a sermon on
So what
3rd
you're trying
John.
to say is it was the best sermon you've ever heard on 3rd John?
I mean, yeah, it's the only sermon I've ever heard. So
well, you didn't
it is
have
the
to
best.
say that. Right? 3rd John 7 and 8. So John is writing this letter to his friend Gaius, for they have gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore, we ought to support people like these, that we may be fellow workers for the truth. I was really struck by that. Like, they have gone out for the sake of the name of Jesus, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. I think we live in we just like get a job and do it. We live in a really practically minded society, and I think there's a lot of wisdom there.
Definitely.
And a lot of people do have marketplace jobs, and I think it should be it's a big part of the conversation now because it wasn't for so long, right? And so I think I think passages like that remind us of no, there are people who need to be committed to going out for the sake of the name, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like that's their way of providing for their families, and then Christians need to support them. So I think I was just struck by the clarity of the biblical forcefulness there from John of, hey, these people have gone out, they're not accepting anything. That's great. Take care of them. So we want people to do that as well, unashamedly so. I'll say that.
Yeah. I mean, we would love that. I think, like you said, Paul was a tent maker in many ways.
Exactly.
But that also, he clearly showed a great thankfulness for people's generosity.
Yeah.
And through people's generosity, it helped propel the work.
Yeah, even that famous verse, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. You haven't given, it's okay. I'm not mad at you for it.
Right.
You haven't had an opportunity, now you have an opportunity, whatever. I know what it's like to have a lot. I know what it's like to have a little. There's seasons where he's tent making, there's seasons where he's just preaching, so yeah. So prayer support and monthly
support.
giving would be 2 helpful ways.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to do that, just email me. I'll put my Mason at resurrectionwv.com, and I'll make sure we can get the appropriate connections. So if you're kind of watching this as maybe someone would see yourself as random because you're not as connected to us, we don't think you're random, but shoot me an email, Mason at resurrectionwv.com, resurrectionwv.com, and we will make sure you can get connected in the right way. Well, Kenny, thanks for coming.
I'm glad to be here. It's honestly always a pleasure to be back at Res, be at the place that I knew and grew so much in just my spiritual walk. And so just love being here.
Yeah, bro. Well, we love you. I like you. I love you too. So I'll end with this. It's March Madness going on right now. Kenny and I were roommates for several years, and we decided we were going to go watch WVU. Got the 3 seed in the big dance. They were playing in Brooklyn, New York. We had some friends and ministry partners in New York, so we went up. We drove up for the game. I remember getting off the interstate, driving through downtown New York City, just blaring country roads. We were so sure of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And we played friggin' Stephen F. Austin, a 14 seed out of Texas.
Yeah.
That redheaded guy, Walk Up was his name. And he torched us. And we just sat there despondent. And the whole arena was happy, except for the Mountaineers. There were a lot of Mountaineers.
Yeah.
Because we were the big dogs, and we got upset. And so we were supposed to spend the whole weekend there. But we went home sad. We walked around museums and walked around the city just despondent. So
it was terrible.
It was so bad. So hopefully you enjoyed some basketball more than we did that time. Thanks for watching. Please share with people in your life who are interested in gospel work happening among the nations. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and rate, review if you've got something nice to say. Always thankful you're here. Thank you for watching. Please join us next time on another installment of Retrieving Catholicity.